There are moments in life that don't make a loud sound when they happen. They don't come with a door slamming or a raised voice or a dramatic scene. They come quietly, like a door closing slowly, so slowly that you barely hear the click. But when you finally realize it's shut, you're already standing on the wrong side of it. That's how it felt the morning I got the phone call from my brother Marcus. I was in the kitchen. It was a Tuesday, I remember, because I had just packed my daughter Lily's lunch for school, and she was sitting at the table, still in her pajamas, drawing a card. She had her tongue pressed to the corner of her mouth the way she always does when she's concentrating. She was 9 years old. Careful. Patient. So proud of every drawing she made. I asked her what she was working on, and she looked up at me with the most beautiful smile and said, "It's for Grandpa's birthday, Mama. I'm making him a house with a garden because he loves his garden." I smiled at her. I put my hand on top of her head just for a moment. And then my phone rang. It was Marcus. "Hey," he said. The word was flat. Not unfriendly, but careful. The way someone sounds when they have practiced what they're about to say. He told me the party was still on. That our father's 70th birthday celebration was going to be wonderful. That the family had rented out a hall, a proper hall, with round tables and decorations and catered food. He told me how many people were coming. And then he paused. And in that pause, I already knew. The way a mother knows. The way a woman knows. Something was wrong. "Margaret," he said, he always uses my full name when he's uncomfortable. "There's been a situation. With the seating. With the guest list." I watched Lily add a yellow sun above the little house she was drawing. Marcus said, "The thing is, Lily isn't on the list." I didn't say anything. He kept talking. He said it was about space. About the number of children. About how the venue had a certain capacity. He said Lily's name 3 more times while explaining why she couldn't come. And every time he said her name, I looked at her, still drawing, still adding flowers to her grandpa's garden, and something inside me went very, very still. When he finished, I told him I understood. I told him I would let him know. And I hung up. Lily looked up at me. She held out the card. "What do you think, Mama? Is the garden big enough?" I looked at that drawing, at the careful little house, the wobbly flowers, the smiling sun, and I said, "It's perfect, baby. It's absolutely perfect." I folded it neatly. I put it in my pocket. And I did not cry. Not yet. Let me tell you a little about my family. My father, George, was, I should say, because that birthday changed things, the kind of man who fills a room. Not because he's loud. He's not loud at all. He's tall and slow-moving and speaks in a deep, deliberate way, like every word has been considered before it leaves his mouth. He grew up working hard. He built things with his hands. He raised 4 children on a teacher's salary and a vegetable garden that he tended every single weekend, rain or shine. I am the second of 4 children. Marcus is the eldest. Then me. Then my sister Deb. Then the youngest, our brother Carl, who moved away years ago and only calls on holidays. Growing up, our house was warm. My mother, God rest her soul, made sure of that. She was the one who called us to the table, who remembered everyone's birthday, who kept the peace when my father's silences got too heavy. She passed when I was 31. After that, everything shifted. Not all at once. Slowly. Like sand moving beneath your feet. My father remarried 3 years after my mother passed. Her name is Patricia. She came with 2 grown children of her own, a son named Derek and a daughter named Lorraine. And she came with opinions. About the house. About the holidays. About how things should be done. I want to be fair to Patricia. I have tried, over the years, to be fair. She makes my father smile. She keeps the house tidy. She plants flowers alongside his vegetables in the garden. There are things to appreciate. I see them. I have always tried to see them. But there were other things too. Small things at first. The way Patricia would redirect conversations at family dinners. The way my father's house, our mother's house, slowly changed its furniture, its curtains, its photographs on the wall. The way Christmases began to feel like something I was a guest at, rather than something I belonged to. My children felt it too. Not because I told them to. Children just feel these things. I have 2 children. My son, Daniel, is 22 now. He was always the quiet, watchful one, the kind of young man who notices everything but says little. And then there's Lily, my youngest. My late-in-life surprise, born when I was 38, when I thought that chapter of my life was finished. She came into the world with her eyes wide open, and she has never stopped looking at everything with wonder. Lily adored her grandfather. Every Sunday, when I would drive her out to my father's house, she would run ahead of me up the path and go straight to the garden. My father would already be there, waiting, with a trowel in his hand and a slow smile on his face. They would kneel in the dirt together for hours. She called him Grandpa Garden. He called her his little sprout. When I think about that now, I have to take a breath. Because Lily had no idea, none, what was happening behind closed doors. She had no idea that in that same house, someone had decided she was not worth a seat at the table. My sister Deb called me a few days after Marcus's phone call. She had heard. She was quiet on the phone in a way that told me she already knew more than she was saying. "Did Marcus reach you?" she asked. I told her yes. She said, "I'm sorry, Meg. I just want you to know I think it's wrong." I asked her if she knew whose decision it was. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "Patricia made the guest list." I did not call my father right away. I wanted to. Oh, I wanted to. But I had learned over the years that rushing into a conversation with emotion is like trying to write in the rain. The words just wash away. So I waited. I let myself feel the weight of it first. I let it settle. And while I waited, things got more complicated. About a week after Marcus's call, I ran into Lorraine, Patricia's daughter, at the grocery store. She didn't see me at first. I almost let her pass. But something made me stop her. We made small talk. How is she? How were things? The weather? And then I said, very gently, "I heard the party is going to be lovely." Something crossed her face. Just for a second. Something that looked like embarrassment. She said, "It's going to be really nice, yes. A big celebration." I asked her how many children would be there. She said her own grandchildren, Patricia's grandchildren, would be there. 2 of them. Ages 7 and 10. Then she added quickly, "It's really a capacity thing, you know. The venue." I smiled and said, "Of course." We said goodbye. I walked to the next aisle. I stood there for a moment between the canned goods and the pasta, and I breathed. Because here was the truth that had just been confirmed without a single harsh word being spoken. Patricia's grandchildren were on the guest list. Lily was not. It was not about capacity. It was about who belonged. And someone had decided that my daughter, my father's blood grandchild, belonged a little less than Patricia's. That night, Daniel came over for dinner. He does that sometimes, just shows up, which I love. He sat at my kitchen table while I cooked, and he could tell something was off. He asked me. I told him. I told him calmly, the way I try to tell my children difficult things, with facts and without fury. Daniel listened without interrupting. He has always been good at that. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Lily doesn't know yet?" I told him no. He said, "Good. Don't tell her yet." I agreed. There was no reason to put that weight on a 9-year-old's shoulders. Not yet. A few days later, I finally called my father. I had planned what I would say. I had practiced it, actually, standing in front of the bathroom mirror like a schoolgirl rehearsing a speech. I was going to be calm. Measured. I was going to ask a simple question and listen. He picked up on the second ring. We talked about small things first. His garden. The tomatoes were coming in well this year. His knee had been bothering him, but the doctor wasn't worried. I asked about Lily's name in his garden, whether the little rose bush he had planted for her birthday last year had bloomed yet. He said yes, it had, and his voice warmed when he said it. Then I said, "Dad, I heard about the guest list for the party." Silence. I said, "I heard Lily's name isn't on it." He said, "Margaret." Just my name. That one word. And in it, I heard everything: apology, discomfort, resignation. I heard a man who knew something was wrong but had already decided not to fight it. He said, "It's complicated. Patricia has been planning this for months, and there are a lot of people coming, and..." I said, very gently, "Dad, is it a capacity issue, or is it a decision someone made?" He didn't answer. I said, "Your other grandchildren are coming. Patricia's grandchildren. Right?" He said, "It's her family, Margaret. They're her grandchildren too." I said, "And Lily is yours." Another silence. Longer this time. He said, "I'll talk to Patricia." I thanked him. I told him I loved him. I hung up. And I sat on the floor of my bedroom, yes, the floor, because sometimes your legs just stop cooperating, and I stayed there for a while in the quiet. 3 days passed. Then 5. A week. He did not call back. Not to say the situation was resolved. Not to say Lily's name had been added. Not even to say he had tried. Just silence. The kind of silence that is its own answer. Meanwhile, Lily kept working on the birthday card. She had added to it, colored it in carefully, added a little figure of herself in the garden with her grandfather, both of them kneeling in the dirt. She was so proud of it. She put it in a special envelope and wrote Grandpa George on the front in her best handwriting. I kept thinking, how do I tell her? How do you tell a child who has done nothing wrong, who is only loved, that she has been left out? The party was 2 weeks away when Daniel called me. He didn't say hello the way he usually does. He said, "Mom, I need to tell you something, and I need you to just listen first." I sat down. He said, "I called Grandpa. I hadn't asked him to. I hadn't even told him I was still waiting for my father to call back. But Daniel had figured it out on his own, because he is quiet and watchful, and because he loves his sister." He said, "I told Grandpa that if Lily isn't at the party, I'm not coming either." I didn't say anything for a moment. Daniel kept talking. He said it calmly, the way I have always tried to speak to him, without drama, with simple clarity. He said he had told my father that Lily was his daughter and his sister, and that she had been drawing a birthday card for weeks, and that she would be heartbroken if she found out she had been left out. He said he had not been unkind to Patricia or to anyone. He had simply stated a fact. I said, "Grandpa, I love you and I want to be there. But I won't celebrate in a room where Lily isn't welcome. She didn't do anything wrong. And she's 9. I put my hand over my mouth. Daniel said, "I hope that was okay, Mom." I told him it was more than okay. I told him it was one of the finest things he had ever done. But then the weight of it hit me because I knew what this might cost. I knew my father. I knew how much he hated confrontation, how easily he withdrew. I was afraid that Daniel's phone call, however loving, might just push everyone further into their corners. 2 days later, the phone rang. It was Marcus. He said, "There's been a development." The tone in his voice was different this time. Less careful. More tired. He said Patricia had heard about Daniel's call. That she was upset. That she felt Daniel had been pressuring the family. That she had gone to my father and said this was exactly why she found it difficult to blend the two families together. And then Marcus said the thing that made my breath stop. He said, "Dad told her he wanted Lily there." I said, "What?" Marcus said, he told her. He said Lily is his granddaughter, and she belongs at his birthday. I heard him say it myself. I sat very still. "And what did Patricia say?" I asked. Marcus was quiet for a second. Then, she said she would step back from organizing the party if Lily came. That it would be too stressful for her to manage. She gave him a choice, essentially. My heart felt like a stone. Because what Marcus was describing, though he said it gently, trying to be fair to everyone, was an ultimatum. A woman had given my 70-year-old father an ultimatum about whether his 9-year-old granddaughter could attend his own birthday party. I asked Marcus what my father had decided. Marcus said, "He asked me to call you." Which meant he hadn't decided. Or he had decided, and he couldn't bring himself to say it. That night, I went into Lily's room after she was asleep. She had the birthday card on her desk, in its special envelope, ready to go. I stood in the doorway for a long time, just looking at her in the quiet dark, this small brave person who had no idea what was happening around her. I thought about my mother. I thought about what she would have done. My mother was a gentle woman, but she had a backbone made of something quiet and unbreakable. She never raised her voice. But she never let wrong things pass either. She would say, "Some things you have to name, Margaret." Not with anger. Just with clarity. The next morning, I called my father directly. Not Marcus. Not Deb. My father. He picked up after 4 rings. I said, "Dad, I'm not calling to argue. I'm not calling to make things harder for you. I know you're in a difficult position. He said, Margaret. I said, please. Let me finish. He went quiet. I said, Lily has been working on your birthday card for 3 weeks. She doesn't know she's not invited. She talks about your garden every day. She loves you, Dad. And I know you love her. He said, I do. I love that little girl more than. His voice broke. And I thought, there it is. There is the man I know. I said, then tell me what you need from me, and I will do it. But I will not explain to my daughter why she can't come to her grandfather's birthday party. I can't do that to her. He was silent for a long time. Then he said, let me handle it. The next 4 days were the quietest of that whole difficult month. No calls from Marcus. No calls from Patricia or Lorraine. Deb texted me once just to say she was thinking of me, and I texted back a heart. Daniel checked in every day, short messages, just letting me know he was there. And Lily went to school and came home and drew pictures and asked me once, carefully, if Grandpa's party was coming soon. I told her yes. And I left it at that. On the 5th day, my father called. He called in the morning, which was unusual for him. He is an evening caller by nature, likes to settle the day before he picks up the phone. He said, Margaret. I said, hi, Dad. He said, Lily is coming to the party. I let out a breath that I think I had been holding for 2 weeks. He said, I told Patricia that this is my family. All of it. And that my granddaughter, my blood, will be at my birthday. And that if anyone has a problem with that, then we have a bigger problem than a seating chart. His voice was different. Something in it had straightened. He said, I'm sorry, Margaret. I'm sorry it took me this long. I'm sorry I didn't say it sooner. I told him I understood. And I meant it. Because I do understand how hard it is to stand in the space between love and loyalty when 2 different families are pulling in opposite directions. I have never stopped understanding that my father is a man who loves 2 families and does not know how to love them equally. That is a painful place to live. I would not wish it on anyone. But I was grateful. I was deeply, bone deeply grateful. I said, Dad, do you want to be the one to tell Lily? He said yes. I put him on the phone with her after school. She stood in the kitchen holding the phone with both hands, the way she does when she's being very serious, and she listened. And then she said, so I can come, Grandpa? Really? He must have said yes, because she lit up like the sun. She said, I made you a card. It has your garden in it. I had to leave the room because I didn't want her to see me cry. The party itself was held on a Saturday afternoon. I dressed Lily in her favorite yellow dress. She carried the birthday card herself, in both hands, all the way from the car to the hall door. Patricia was there. We looked at each other across the room when we arrived. She did not smile. I did not look away, but I did not hold the moment hostage either. I just nodded, quietly, and walked toward my father. He was standing near the center of the room in a dark blue jacket, taller than his years somehow, and when he saw Lily come through the door, something in his face changed. His whole body settled. He crouched down slowly, because of the knee, and she ran to him and pressed that envelope into his hands. I made it myself, she said. It has your garden. He opened it right there, in the middle of all the people and the noise, and he held it up close to look at it properly. And then he pressed it against his chest. Daniel was there too. He came over to me after a while, and we stood together near the wall watching the room. He said, You okay, Mom? I said, I'm better than okay. He said, She's been following Grandpa around for 20 minutes. I looked over, and sure enough, Lily was walking beside my father, holding his hand, telling him something very important about something, and he was listening with his full attention. I thought, this is what it was all for. All the phone calls, all the waiting, all the quiet breathing. For this. There was a moment later in the evening, after dinner, when the hall got loud and warm and people were talking and the music was playing softly. I found a seat near a window and I just watched. I watched my father laugh at something Daniel said. I watched Lily show her card to one of Patricia's grandchildren, sharing it without hesitation, the way children share things before anyone teaches them not to. I watched Deb dance with her husband near the edge of the room. I watched Marcus give a speech about our father that was clumsy and sweet and true. And I thought about my mother. I thought, she would have loved this. And then, She would have known how to handle all of it far better than I did. But she would have been proud, I think. Not because everything was perfect. It wasn't. There were still tensions in that room that I could feel, like weather, low pressure, not raining, but not clear either. Patricia and I did not have a breakthrough that day. We did not hug or exchange kind words. We coexisted. And maybe, for now, that was enough. What mattered was that Lily was there. What mattered was that Daniel had stood up for his sister with love and without cruelty. What mattered was that my father had found, somewhere inside himself, the courage to say, "This child belongs here." A few weeks after the party, I went to visit my father on a Sunday. Just the two of us, the way we used to before everything got complicated. He made tea. He always makes tea, even in summer, and we sat at the kitchen table and talked for a long time about nothing important. His tomatoes, my job, a book he had been reading, the ordinary things. At some point, he reached into a drawer and pulled out Lily's birthday card. He had kept it. It was a little bent at one corner from being in the drawer, but he held it carefully. He said, "She's got her grandmother's eyes, you know." I said, "I know, Dad." He said, "Your mother would have loved her." I said, "She would have." He set the card down on the table between us. He looked at it for a moment. Then he looked at me. He said, "I didn't handle things well this year." I told him we didn't have to talk about it. He said, "No, I want to. I want to say it properly." He paused. "I love Patricia. And I love my family, the one your mother and I built together. And I got confused, Margaret, trying to keep everyone happy. I forgot that trying to keep everyone happy can end up making the people you love most feel like they're not enough." I looked at my father, this old, tired, decent man sitting across from me, and I felt something in my chest ease. Not all the way. You don't heal everything in one conversation. But something eased. I said, "I know you love Lily." He said, "More than I can say." I said, "Then that's what matters. The rest we can figure out as we go." He nodded. He reached out and put his hand over mine on the table, a gesture so like something my mother used to do that my breath caught for a moment. Outside, through the kitchen window, I could see the garden. The rose bush he had planted for Lily was still blooming. Small red flowers, unpretentious, steady. I have thought a lot about what happened since then. About how a small thing, a name left off a guest list, became a large thing. About how the large thing was not really about a party at all. It was about belonging. About whether a child grows up knowing she is wanted, fully and without conditions, by the people who are supposed to love her most. I have thought about Daniel and how he stood up for his sister without being asked. He didn't make a scene. He didn't threaten anyone or send angry messages or post things on the internet. He simply told his grandfather, with love and with clarity, "This is where I stand." And that quiet act of loyalty, that small, private thing between a brother and a grandfather, changed everything. I have thought about what it means to fight for someone without making them feel like a burden. Because Lily never knew what was happening. She never knew that there was a battle around her name. She just knew that when she walked into that hall in her yellow dress with her birthday card in both hands, her grandfather ran down, never mind the bad knee, and held her like she was the most important thing in the room. Because she was. If you are listening to this and you are in a blended family, or a complicated family, or any family at all, I want to say this gently. Children feel everything, even when they seem not to notice. Even when they are busy drawing little houses with gardens and smiling suns. They feel who welcomes them and who tolerates them. They feel the difference between a hug and an obligation. They carry that feeling with them for a very long time. The adults in their lives don't have to be perfect. We are not perfect. But we have to try. We have to try to make sure that a child, especially one who has done nothing more than love freely, never has to question whether they deserve a seat at the table. Every child deserves a seat. Not because they earned it. Not because they behaved perfectly. But because they exist. Because they are here. Because they belong. My father's garden is beautiful this year. Lily visits every Sunday. She and my father kneel in the dirt together, the way they always have. She asks questions and he answers them slowly, in his deliberate way. She is learning the names of things. She is learning that growing something takes patience and attention and showing up even when the weather isn't perfect. Maybe we all are. Daniel comes sometimes too now. He pulls up a chair near the garden and watches them. He doesn't say much, but he smiles. And every time I look at the three of them together, my father, my son, my daughter, I feel something I don't have a word for. Something between gratitude and grief and love. Something that feels like family. Not perfect family. Not the kind you see in photographs where everyone is smiling easily and nothing is complicated. The real kind. The kind that cracks and mends and cracks again. The kind that shows up anyway. The kind where a 22-year-old young man calls his grandfather and says, gently but clearly, my sister belongs there. And the grandfather finds, in his tired and complicated heart, the courage to agree. That is the kind of family I want to be. That is the kind of family I hope we are becoming. Thank you for listening. If this story touched you in some way, if it reminded you of someone you love, or something you've been afraid to say, or a moment when someone stood up for you when you didn't even know they were trying, then carry that with you. And if there is a child in your life who sometimes wonders whether they belong, please let them know. They do. They always did.